Mr. Duke, welcome and thank you very much for your presence. The European Parliament began its 10th term. How it looks like, more or less Europe in it?
Well, I think that if you look to the plenary hemicycle, to the composition of the political groups, the first thing which is obvious is that there is a majority of pro-European political forces. Around 60% of the House is defending these pro-European positions, which is important, of course, because the next 5 years will be quite complicated for the world in general, also why not for Europe, and we need a very constructive institution.
Yeah, you said that the next 5 years will be hard, but which is the hardest task topic that European Parliament must find a solution immediately now?
I think that the Parliament has to contribute, or has to keep contributing, because it started 2 years ago, to protect peace, both in the European Union and in the European territory, in the continent. And sadly, we still see this Russian aggression, this war against Ukraine, which for us, for all the European institutions, must be a real priority.
You mentioned the war in Ukraine, but there is another war on our continent, the disinformation war. What is the solution?
Yes, and these two wars are connected because, of course, there is this war against Ukraine, which is a territorial war, but at the same time, Russia is also trying to attack our way of living, our liberties, our freedom, our democracy. And this is being done, for example, through this disinformation policy, these disinformation campaigns. And this is a very serious threat, and we can already see the consequences in the political landscape of some member states. How to fight against disinformation? First of all, we have to be conscious of the problem, and we have to tell this to society. Society has to understand that not everything that is circulating in social media, or sometimes even in media, in the real media, is true. There is a lot of manipulation. And then, of course, we have to work with fact checkers, we have to work with the social media platforms, obliging them to respect the laws adopted by the European Union on digital services, on digital platforms. And we also, I think, we need to be better in media literacy. We have to help youngsters, teenagers, to understand also the dangers of disinformation.
Because we are talking about social media, before the European elections I have seen very nice advertising. The elections were presented as Formula One racing. So, what is the fast and furious decision that must be made until this plenary session?
Well, this plenary session is the plenary session for the election of the internal bodies of the European Parliament. We saw yesterday the election of the President of the Parliament, by the way, by a record number of votes. Roberta Metsola got the support of more or less 90% of the members of this House, and then the vice presidents, etc. Next week we will follow up with the presidencies of the committees, which means that before summer this House will be ready to start with the real work, which will be probably the hearings for the next candidates to become commissioners, members of the European Commission. But at the same time, you saw also that already today there was a decision, there was a resolution voted to show to citizens, to show to the world that this parliament is still backing Ukraine in a very, very solid way.
Shall we see some changes about Green Deal?
We'll see. Most of the Green Deal legislation has been already adopted during the last legislature, but it's true that there are still some pieces of law to be discussed, and then, of course, the implementation of what has been decided these last years. And it's true that now you can see that in some countries or in many citizens there is also this concern about how to make compatible the necessity to keep fighting against climate change and all the consequences of it, and at the same time to protect our agriculture, to protect our industry, to protect in some way the competitivity of the European Union. And both things are necessary.